How many of you have purchased something on Amazon, or perhaps taken a Uber, or bought something in Walmart or any other major retail? Well, if you've done this, in the future, you're going to be doing it and have adopted cryptocurrencies to do so without even realizing that that technological innovation has taken place. And actually, what we're interested in doing on this channel is finding out what cryptocurrencies are going to enable the transformation and the enabling of the internet of value. And this is going to be a video on exactly that. And we are going to be reporting on some major news from both Walmart and Amazon, one of the largest companies in the world that most of us have used. We're also going to be looking at what Uber has had to say. Then we're going to talk about why these companies are going to adopt crypto, which means you're going to be using it in your day-to-day life. All payments are going to be done on DLTs. And the reason being is the same reason that we stopped sending letters and started sending emails and text messages and so on and so forth. It's because it's simply more efficient. That transformational shift is taking place. And I believe technologies like XRP, XLM, and many others out there are going to enable this new internet of value. And actually, we're going to go a step further and show you a clip of Brad Garlinghouse specifically talking about Amazon and Uber, which are two major companies, some of the largest in the world, that have both recently came out and acknowledged or publicly displayed their interest in adopting crypto for payments specifically. Ladies and gentlemen, strap yourselves in. Let's dive into the news to set the stage, and we're going to be going over to Ledger Insights website. Ledger Insights is a good website. It says Amazon Walmart mull stablecoin issuance. And this was a report, I believe, that was published by the Wall Street Journal. The Wall Street Journal reported today that Amazon and Walmart are exploring potentially issuing their own stablecoins, or failing that, using an existing one. Now, of course, stablecoins are enabled on public distributed ledgers. Right now, and I have a group of people that are all dedicated to doing the same things, link in the description to the Patreon, you are going to want to look for the DLTs, the public DLTs that are going to enable the evolution of money, which I believe takes place in the form of stablecoins and CBDCs. It's going to happen on public distributed ledgers, not private ones. And yes, they're talking about issuing their own stablecoin, but it will be on a public ledger or using one that already exists. USDC, RLUSD, some of the others out there. Let's continue with the news. A lot depends on the outcome of the Genesis Act, or Genius Act, keep calling it Genesis Act, stablecoin legislation winding its way through the Senate. Another e-commerce giant mulling a digital currency is travel firm Expedia. They all will. I'm going to play you a clip of Amazon CEO also expressing his interest in using stablecoins. Why? Because it takes you from sending a letter to an email. It saves hundreds of billions of dollars. I think Walmart, we're talking billions alone, in fees that has to be paid to credit card merchants. Middlemen, if you will, that get essentially eradicated to a degree when you implement DLT technology. That's why this technology is going to be adopted. And I believe there's cryptocurrencies that we talk about on a daily basis that are very well positioned to enable all this, and are going to be worth a hell of a lot of money as a result of it. He goes on to say, while Amazon and Walmart likely pay lower fees than some other merchants, just because of the size of them, they get better deals, for credit cards that charge are around 2.9%, whereas many blockchains, the fees can be negligible. Next to nothing. If you look at, for example, on XRP, XLM, let's say Algorand, Hedera, if you look at how much money it costs to make a transaction, in some cases you're talking 0.001 cent in opposition with 2 and 3% of the purchasing price that the consumer doesn't really see ultimately, because it's kind of rolled up in the costs or the outgoings of the merchant, or the retailer, if you will, in certainly Amazon and Expedia and these other cases. It goes on to say, additionally, there are delays in receiving the funds from card payments, whereas the recipient for stablecoin funds can almost be instant. It then goes on to talk, one of the options being considered is a consortium of merchants led by stablecoin issuers. We'd observed that the Global Dollar Stablecoin Initiative by Paxos has a similar consortium structure for financial service companies, which shares in the interest revenues on the stablecoin balance. And then it goes on to say about the Genius Act, which is currently passing, so that we have a clear legislative sort of framework to actually be able to integrate and adopt this technology. What I want to do, and the reason we're bringing up Uber is because this was said literally this month by Uber's CEO. What I want to do is play this because both Amazon and Uber were mentioned by Brad Garlinghouse himself at a Swell event a few years ago now, where he spoke about why they're going to adopt this technology, or a few reasons why, specifically in regards to XRP and what it's trying to enable. I'll also perhaps show you some more links in regards to Amazon. For example, Amazon at a web service panel, or one of Amazon's web service panels, there was essentially an individual there representing them that said, we have someone on our team that's dedicated to look for how XRP can be used in payments. There's also a number of articles that we may look at. But let's go ahead and dive into what Uber's CEO had to say in regards to crypto adopting it. And again, it's very interesting that retail sentiment right now towards the crypto space is abysmal. But there's never been a better time. And what I mean by that is this technology is on the cusp of being adopted and going mainstream and being used in day-to-day life, just like you use the internet. Let's dive into what Uber's CEO had to say.
I understand that you are considering stablecoin as a vehicle for Uber. Talk about where your considerations are and how that might benefit your business.
Yeah, we're still in the study phase, I'd say, but I think stablecoin is one of the, for me, more interesting instantiations of crypto that has a practical benefit other than crypto as a store of value. You know, obviously, you can have your opinions on Bitcoin, but it's a proven commodity, and you know, people have different opinions on where it's going. But I do think that stablecoin is quite promising, especially for global companies that are moving money around globally to create a mechanism for us to essentially reduce costs.
We have it, Uber's CEO, and we're going to play a clip of Brad Garlinghouse talking specifically about Uber and Amazon in just a second, and them adopting this technology. Uber's CEO confirming what both Amazon and Walmart have came out recently and essentially said. What I want to do now is actually before I do that, I'll show you just roughly the average credit card processing fees in 2025. We go down to this graph here. On Visa, in person, you're talking, 1.7% of the purchase plus 0 or 88 cents. Online or manually keyed, you're talking 2.25% or 25 cents. I mean, this gets reduced to mere basis points with the adoption of this technology. That's the reason it's going to get. It's not because it's cool. It's not because it's this thing that's like the trend at the moment. It's because this technology fundamentally changes something that we all do on a day-to-day basis, which is payments. And I think that's huge. That's an investment or I would say opportunity, in my opinion, in being early in a technology that is on a trajectory to change the world and be adopted by it. Let's now dive into what Brad Garlinghouse had to say, specifically in regards to the companies that just released this news, being Amazon and Uber. I'm sure we could find some Walmart links if we sort of delve deep enough. So let's dive into this, ladies and gents.
And if you look at how global payments today, one of the things I have pointed to is companies like Amazon employ a couple hundred engineers, and all they do is they integrate into payment networks around the world. So Amazon today, last time I checked, could only support payouts in 19 different currencies. Amazon is, I think one of the $2 trillion companies, and yet Amazon, their marketplace, which is a huge piece of their business, they can only pay out in 19 currencies. And that is a hodgepodge of integrations around the world, ranging from India to China to the EU. Now, if you think about the implication of that to more tangibly a business, we have had conversations with other networks, other marketplaces like Uber. Uber knows that if they can pay their drivers more frequently, the retention of their drivers goes up. Uber has a big challenge in that people join and become drivers and then they churn out. That means that Uber has to go acquire new drivers. That's not a great thing. Now, some of you probably took a taxi here this morning. When you got out of the taxi, you either paid them in cash or you paid them with a credit card, which frankly would settle in a couple days. In contrast, when you're using Uber, the Uber drivers get paid every 2 weeks. Why is it they get paid every 2 weeks? How can we reduce the friction so every time you get out of an Uber, the Uber driver gets paid? Uber wants that to happen, and despite being obviously a major player, the ability, the friction even associated for someone like that is challenging. Our vision is to truly enable global payments such that you can plug in with one API, and whether you're seeking liquidity, whether you're seeking a payment into a payment network, whether you're seeking a payment to a bank, to reduce that friction such that it is real-time and extremely low cost. By doing that, we think we can let RippleNet truly scale to serve a new set of customer demands. On demand and real time. Again, we are all witnessing a generation grow up that are sometimes pejoratively described as millennials. They expect real time. They've grown up with the expectation that this is going to be a real-time experience. They can click on their phone and have ice cream delivered in 30 minutes. I do love ice cream. Let's not criticize that. So we can make them low cost. We can truly get a dramatic reduction in the error rate such that there are not failures, and deliver an elegant experience both to banks and to their customers. Ripple has been fortunate to have some really profound momentum. Many of those, one of the reasons are the customers here in the room. As a cross-section, we have announced over 100 customers. These are a handful of names. Again, many of them are in the room, ranging from Siam Commercial, Amex, Santander, certainly Remitter, Instarem. But we couldn't be more proud to be able to show slides like this, and we know that we owe our success to the partnership with all of you in the room.
So we'll leave that there. That was Brad Garlinghouse talking about what is coming to fruition today, literally years ago, and showing a few partnerships. Also, a quick reminder, they mentioned Amex there, American Express. They recently partnered with Coinbase to enable a credit card. The writing's on the walls. They can't just come out and openly tell people what's going on behind the scenes. There's people in the know, there's people that's not. We like to spot the footprints in the sand. I think when it comes to XRP, it's very obvious. We're specifically focusing on XRP here, but there's going to be multiple cryptos that enable this kind of transformational shift. I just found it very interesting that both Amazon and Uber are now adopting crypto. And of course, they spoke, or Brad Garlinghouse spoke about this a long time ago. It seems very obvious that this technology is going to get adopted. And I think when you link that to kind of retail sentiment, it's rather interesting. And the last thing I want to love and leave you on is an Amazon Web Service panel where an individual essentially says, or does say, quote, "We have someone on our team dedicated to looking at how XRP could be used in payments." This stuff has been getting worked through and integrated for years now. There just needs to be a more global shift that is literally taking place today. We're seeing that with legislation. Don't lose sight of the bigger picture, guys. Let's dive into this.
Collaborating with them up front. And then, of course, payments, right? We also have someone on our team dedicated to seeing where XRP for payments can be of use, and working with different merchants as well as consumers, platforms and apps to see where there could be a good opportunity for us there.
I mean, the writing is on the walls. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to love and leave you on that note. We just wanted to get a video out. This was news that we didn't get the opportunity, unfortunately, to cover last week. I think there's too many coincidences for this to all be a mere coincidence. And I think actually something like XRP was destined to succeed from the start and actually be the new, or part of, a big part of the new financial system. And don't let lackluster price action sort of shake you out or deter you from that overall picture of what's taking place. That's it from me, guys. I'm going to love and leave you. Thanks, everyone, for watching. See you all soon.